Josh Fechter. Welcome to the stage. The floor is yours.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I know what it takes to put on a conference like this. It's a lot of work, so I really appreciate everything you guys are doing and for flying me all the way out here from Los Angeles. And a lot of great speakers were up tonight and a lot of great conversations, and I can't wait for that to continue after the talk as well. So the topic is how to build your startup, how to build a sales funnel, $4 a day. Is it possible? The answer is yes, and let's jump right into it. So this actually happened this week, and I wasn't going to include this slide, but it just so happened. And this was on LinkedIn's engineering blog, and they noted that they had changed the algorithm to their feed. And it happened because of two reasons. One is because I had figured out how to game the feed, which is they linked to a video of me. And then two is just another reason of, hey, people are gaming the feed. And I thought that was so interesting. And it's how most people know me. You know, I've done a lot of things, but being able to game a feed of 500 million users and having LinkedIn change their entire algorithm for their platform is absolutely incredible. And I'm going to walk you through, the process of how I did that and how you can do similar things to help grow your startup and combine it with some other tactics to really hit the people who are going to convert best. So first, I'm going to dive into a funny story. So what's the similarities between all these companies? Well, around 8 years ago, I had applied to work for all of them. I was actually the VP of marketing for a mobile app. It was Tinder for Jobs, and it had failed. I was getting mentored at the time by Scott Case. He was the co-founder of Priceline, one of the fastest companies to reach $1 billion. And he looks at the mobile app. First week I'm at the company, and he says, "This is a piece of crap. Your company is going to fail." And I was like, wow, that's, first week on the job. That really sucks. And I was like, OK, well, let's just stick it out, see what happens. But he said something really interesting. He said, you know what, take this time to learn. You're getting paid to learn, just learn. And I was like, well, at least you see the upside. But it was true. And over the next couple of failed startups, I would actually realize that this was a learning experience, that I wasn't just in it for one startup, but I was in the startup world to really learn how to build from the ground up. And maybe that would take 5 years, maybe it would take 10, 15. But at that moment, I realized I was in for the long run. So what I did is I applied to work at all these startups. And these were startups at the time. You're talking about they had around 20 people on their team. I remember walking into Grammarly's office and talking to their head of growth, Yuri, and being in an interview with him. And he says, you know what, you're too entrepreneurial. I don't think you'll fit in here well. And I didn't get the job. And I didn't get the job at any of these places. And now most of them are worth over $1 billion today. Marketo, I think, is worth a little over like $5 billion. It's crazy, but you just never know, right? And sometimes opportunities are there and they get taken away, but you got to keep pushing because something will happen if you do. So staying persistent is so key. And then desperation breeds potential. So what happened was I didn't have any money. None of these companies wanted to hire me. Moved back to San Diego, and the best thing happened to me ever is I took a really shitty job in copywriting. Like a really shitty job. And I was writing tutorials on video editing software. Very technical tutorials. And what I didn't realize is this would be one of my key skills 7 years later when I was creating all these processes, guides, tutorials for people for my community and writing all these books and all these marketing guides. And then going onto LinkedIn and writing all these statuses that would get millions and millions of views, and people would be considering them to game the feed. So what this means is that opportunity is everywhere, and sometimes you don't see it right away. Sometimes it's at a really shitty job that you hate, where your boss puts her feet up on your desk and just yells at you, and you're like, why am I even here? But the good news is what I did is I took a further pay cut, and I said, you know what, I'm going to work for close to free for a startup, at least where people want to mentor me and I can learn something cool. So what I did is I started reading, and I said, OK, well, how do I get a startup and another job opportunity where people want to take a chance on me? So I started reading about marketing. I started reading about business. And over the span of that year, I read 120 books. So I was just writing and reading. And then I landed a job. And this job was at a Facebook marketing software company. And they were the first company to do live streaming on Facebook. The bad news is this was 3 years before it became popular and no one cared. So timing tends to be important. Sometimes, right? So what I did is like, okay, well, this isn't going to work out. They taught me a lot about design, Facebook ads, started creating all these tutorials for them, but I had to leave. I wasn't going to make any money. So I started asking myself, how do I really get a job in marketing that can advance my skill set and where I can at least, maybe be a head of growth, a VP of marketing for a young startup. And that's when I started studying the best. How many of you guys know Nas Daily? Are you familiar with him? Just by a show of hands. So some of you guys, he runs one of the largest Facebook fan pages, and he was the first channel to include it in Facebook Watch. Really big deal. And what makes him such a brilliant marketer? And what makes him get millions and millions of views on all of his videos? Well, he does a new video every single day, and he documents his journey. And I started realizing to build an audience is exactly what I needed to do. So I started putting together events. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to put together events and build this audience. I didn't really know what that looked like. And at first, it looked like 5 people showing up to event, 10 people showing up to event, 15 people, and I just kept doing it. Wasn't making any money, and I just prayed that something good would come out of it. And what I didn't realize is that later, when I connected the dots looking back, there would be so many positive things. Even though I wasn't making money, I was learning. I was talking to some of the best growth hackers. And I was documenting. So what I want you guys to do today, if you're a marketer and you're trying to create a startup, realize that audience building is so important. So I talk to so many entrepreneurs who have great products, have great ideas, but they can't build an audience because they can't put 2 posts in a week. They're just too busy, right? And they can't shoot video. They can't do design. What it comes down to is there's not a lot of things you need to know to build an audience. You either have to be good at copywriting, good at shooting video, good at speaking, or good at design. If you're not good at any of those, you will not build an audience. So as a marketer in a startup or a founder in a startup, ask yourself, are you good in any of those? And if the answer is no, then you're not going to build an audience. It's going to be very, very hard to sell your product. So what I started doing was like, okay, well, if I need to document, how do I do this? That's a little bit more scalable. So I started writing. I started writing about my journey and start using all those copywriting skills I learned for a year at my shitty job. And I realized something powerful. I realized that people were actually interested in the stuff that I was writing about. And what that looked like is I started turning this material into books. And I started building my online community. So I launched a bunch of books. They're all up on Product Hunt. How many of you guys here are familiar with Product Hunt by show of hands? Cool, so a lot of you guys. And Product Hunt has been great. Just a phenomenal place to get my name out there and be like, hey, this is some of the work that I've done. But this is years and years of work. Years just documenting my journey, right? And what I've realized is the power of documenting your journey comes as an investment. And I like to say the best investment is a compounding investment. What does that mean? So if I write today and I write 60 years from now, I'm going to get 60 years of benefit. If you understand Facebook Ads Manager today, if you understand how to maybe do great SEO today, how valuable will that be 10 years from now? 10 years when people stop running Facebook ads. 10 years when SEO doesn't really matter anymore. That becomes a huge problem. You know what's going to be here 50 years from now? We're still going to have video. There's still going to be design. There's still going to be copywriting, and people will still be speaking. Those are all compounding investments in audience building. And if you don't have those, then it's a huge problem when you're building your company, right? So what I like to say is the first step in order to actually do audience building is you have to create over consume. And I'm a little bit obsessive when it comes to creation because I know that today it's easier to get distracted than ever. For example, most people, and I know this from running a company, we have around 35 people in our company, and I see a lot of employees on their phone. And I talk to other founders, and I talk to other marketers. And what they say is like, I'm so addicted to my phone, I don't know how to get off of it. And people are spending 3 to 4 hours a day on their phone. That's insane, right? And that's every day. And that's time that you can be writing, time that you can be producing video. And as soon as you cut that time out, your world changes. I don't have Instagram, I don't have Facebook, I don't have LinkedIn on my phone. In fact, I created a custom Chrome extension to block out all my news feeds online. And then what I did is I unfollowed every single person I was following. So everybody that follows Gary Vee, I don't follow Gary Vee. The only person I follow is myself. and I ask myself questions. And they're very simple. It's, how do I create within this status area, right? Because when you go to LinkedIn, when you go to Facebook, and when you're trying to audience build, what do you see when you're trying to write a status? You see the 3 posts below that are distracting you. That's saying, look at me. Look at what your friends are doing. Don't you miss me? And it's so hard to write and create content. It almost makes it impossible. That's why I had to create a custom Chrome extension just to knock it out. And once I did that, the world opened up to me, and it said, you can write. And so I started writing all the time, and I started writing all these stories. And over the span of around 7 years, I've probably written 2,000 to 3,000 stories. But you have to get in this mindset of creation. What does creation look like? And creation on social media looks a lot like messaging people. Not just writing statuses, not just shooting video, but messaging. Now, how many people will notice your like on Instagram on their picture if you're the 150th like? Nobody's going to notice you. In fact, liking doesn't build any relationships. No one ever came to me and said, I like this guy's photo, and he then became a customer of mine. It's never happened. What does create relationships, what does sell, is messaging. And it sounds so simple, right? How many of you guys like more things on social media than messages you send out? Probably most of you. And that's a problem that we have today, is that we're not using social media for relationship building. And when I realized, I was like, okay, well, social media is free. Let's just start doing relationship building. Let's start producing content. So I started producing content regularly, started messaging people regularly, and all of a sudden I was like, okay, well, let's build this Facebook group. And I started building this Facebook group that now has a little over 20,000 members today, and it wasn't difficult. It's not like it took me a lot of time. I simply stopped consuming crap online. And it sounds crazy, but it's true. And I invested in my compounding skills. So I invested more in writing. I invested in video. I learned how to do live video. And then I hired a videographer. And I had not that much money, right? This is all free stuff that I was doing. In the Facebook group, I remember when I was a growth evangelist for Autopilot, I had built so much rapport just posting marketing tutorials and doing copywriting posts that one day I say, hey, I'm going to release my drive to you of growth hacks. If you get on our free trial of our software, what I'll do is I'll give it to you. And I had close to 300 people from the group jump on our software that led to close to $200,000 in revenue. So from one Facebook post and one Facebook group, we generated $200,000 in revenue. That's insane. But that's what community building does. That's what messaging does, right? And all I did was put my target market in a Facebook group, write content, and produce tutorials. That's it. And this is so important today, is finding your deep T's and combining them. So I'm not an expert in everything. I know that. I know I'm good at copywriting. I know I have some other skills. I'm okay at design. But I know where I lack. And when I founded my agency, I didn't go and say, hey, I know how to found an agency. My co-founder used to be the head of growth for an agency. He said, you have an audience. I know how to build an agency. Let's do it. Made sense. Saved us probably years, right? And the same thing happened when I started my software company. I don't know how to build software. I'm not an engineer. My 2 co-founders, they're both engineers, right? You have to partner with people who have deep T's. And you have to know what your deep T's are. And if you don't have a deep T in either design, writing, speaking, or video, you will not build your startup and you will not sell your product. Unless your product is good enough to be sold by its own. If it's not Slack, you pretty much need to do audience building, right? If it's not Mixmax, whatever it is, you have to focus on how do you build that audience. And for the most part, it's almost always free. So here's an example of our software product that we released. And what's a common theme among all these testimonials? Well, they're all fake. None of them are real. So what we did is we threw up a landing page and we said, okay, we're going to run Google AdWords to it, and let's see if it converts. And it ended up converting into paying customers. And the software didn't even exist. And that's the best part. We didn't even have to build it to know if people would buy it. So we just threw up a value prop, and then what I went ahead and did is I said, you know what, Josh? You're not that great at design. Let's go and get somebody to improve it. But the thing about this is not everybody likes to do this and throw up a landing page, run some ads, see if somebody will buy, or even try to sell something that doesn't exist. but you just got to step up to plate and realize that some people will hate you for doing it, but you can't care. It's just a fact of life. I sell things all the time that don't exist because I'm always trying to find product market fit. It's very, very hard. And if you start selling early enough, it's going to save you a ton of time, to say the least. And one of the scariest things to do if you're a marketer or if you're a founder coming from a technical background is to start selling. And it sounds so simple, but most people are too scared. And I talk to thousands and thousands of entrepreneurs and founders who always build before they sell, and they lose so much money building something that nobody wants. So don't be that person. And you don't let your ideas fail. So this is important too. One of the things that we do is we test so many landing pages, we test so many ideas. I think I fail far more than everybody else, and that's why I find these growth hacks are so successful. And I laugh about it because I honestly just don't care what people think, and that's why. I don't know how many times I posted on my Facebook profile, on LinkedIn, I'm like, I'm going to go do this, and you guys are all going to watch me do that, and then it never happens. But I do that so often that eventually one turns out, and it works. And what I like to say is your ideas don't have to be great. They just have to be better. So for example, I had been writing on Quora for several years. I had close to 400 answers. And how I figured out the LinkedIn algorithm feed is I asked myself one question. I said, you know what, content on LinkedIn sucks. It's people trying to promote events, and they're just sharing blog articles. I don't know if you guys remember, like a year and a half ago, that's what LinkedIn was. And I said, what if I shared this story and I put it on LinkedIn? This story that had gone viral on Quora, and it went viral on LinkedIn. And I said, oh my God, I have 400 answers just like this. This is incredible. So what I did is I started sharing these stories at scale. And they started all going viral on LinkedIn. And it's just because I asked myself a simple question, would this work? Same way we grew our Facebook group. We grew our Facebook group by cold emailing 60,000 targeted people. And that took us to the first 6,000 members. I cold emailed everybody from 500 startups, everybody from Y Combinator, et cetera. Because I was the first person to ask, what if you could have a B2B group on Facebook? And what if you could cold email people and they would join your group? Just those simple questions, right? Simple questions with no money involved, right? I was just shooting cold email campaigns to get people to join. And it's so funny because I ended up creating one of the most targeted B2B groups on Facebook before anybody had one. And same with LinkedIn. You're just putting up a story. That's it. It's just a simple question. And most of the time, the best things that happen to you are just from these simple questions. So what happens when something works? Well, you invest in perfection. This is so key. And as one of my mentors once said, he said, few things work in startup life, very few. But when you find something that works, don't triple down on it. Go 10x. And if you don't go 10x, you may lose out on one of the biggest opportunities. So when I notice things that work, and I say, okay, wow, this works to grow my Facebook group. This works for LinkedIn. What we did is we started creating the science behind how does these posts go viral. So I started studying all my stories. And I went through and I created science around it. And I created guidelines. And today it's actually one of the biggest services for our agency. And we write these stories for founders and marketers on LinkedIn. And I would say across the board with our clients, we probably reach maybe 50 million people a week. It's absolutely insane. And what happens when these stories start going viral? Well, this is where you come in. So you have this content, right? You're doing audience building, and you're on LinkedIn. Maybe you're on Facebook. But let's say you're on LinkedIn, you're writing this content. I don't know how many of you guys know the Phantom Buster, just by raise of hands. Oh my God. So I hope this will blow your mind if you check it out later. Phantom Buster is the best growth hacking tool that exists. It is the API for marketers. They probably have like 30 APIs for scraping data. It's absolutely insane. And you don't need to be a coder, you don't need to be a programmer to actually understand the tool. And what it does, and what I learned, is that when I was building my audience on LinkedIn, I said, hey, you know what? LinkedIn is the only platform out there, out of all social platforms, where I can get someone's personal email. That's really interesting. And I started asking myself, well, why would a personal email be valuable? Well, one is you can remarket to these people across almost every platform if you have their personal email. And for the most part, what we see is the 80% match rate when we upload these emails into Business Ads Manager. And we start running Facebook ads to them and Instagram ads to them. So the same people I'm connected with on LinkedIn can now see my ads. Absolutely incredible. And Phantom Buster, what allows you to do is if you give me a list, you're like, Josh, here's a list of company names, people's names, and I want their LinkedIn URLs. Done. That's what Phantom Buster does. So what that allows me to do is I want to do count-based marketing. If I want to connect with people at scale, even for B2C startups, startups with price points at $15 a month, you can create maybe 5 to 6 LinkedIn accounts. And we've done this before, connecting with people at scale and getting all their personal emails and then using this for marketing purposes. And people like to say, you know, Josh, is this GDPR compliant? And I get that question all the time. And I totally get it. I want you to go through and read LinkedIn's rules and regulations. I read all the rules and regulations because that's just what I do. And it turns out that when you connect with someone, you're allowed to market to them based off any data they give you. LinkedIn wants no responsibility when you create your profile on their platform. So anything that they give you, including their personal email, you can use that to market to them. Now, you're like, but what if? Just be a startup founder and stop doing that. And then one of the other cool tools is Linked Helper. Linked Helper connects with people at scale. You can send out 150 to 200 invites a day based on your Sales Navigator search. Absolutely incredible. This tool has existed for like 5 years. I don't know why more people don't know about it, but it's been a game changer. It can grow your target market, your prospect list, by literally thousands every single week. And that means you're getting thousands of people's personal emails that you can be selling to. So this may be VP of marketing in the insurance industry with over 50 plus employees. Whatever Sales Navigator gives you in terms of a search, you can run Linked Helper and connect with all those people and then get their personal emails. Absolutely incredible. Then what happens when you start remarketing to them, right? What happens when you're producing content on LinkedIn and you have all these personal emails? Well, you have omnipresence. Omnipresence is very powerful, especially if you're in B2C, B2B. People will be like, how is this guy everywhere? Some people connect with me on LinkedIn, and then they see an ad the same day on their Facebook newsfeed and on Instagram, and they're like, what just happened? Like, how did he do that? And it's because I just took their personal email, uploaded it, and now I can run ads across all these different sites to them, right? And because this is such a targeted list, I'm not spending $100 a day on ads. I'm often just spending, maybe a couple of dollars a day on ads. That's it to hit this really targeted list of people. And what am I doing with these ads? Well, I'm using the stories that I wrote, right? And the best part is I use stories about culture, stories that overcome their objections. And what are objections that people have to work with you? Well, who have you worked with already? Have you worked with people who are credible? Do you have a good company culture? And these stories help tell that. What they don't do is they don't say, book a demo now, buy now. And what we found out is that these type of stories, you can run them up to a frequency of sometimes 9 times. And the average Facebook ad is around 3.14. It's absolutely insane. So this is almost 3 times more than a regular Facebook ad in terms of frequency, where people don't get sick of it. And all these ads that we run, for the most part, have a relevance score of 9 or 10. And if you're in the B2B space, having a relevance score of 9 or 10 in your ads is absolutely insane. Like most people I talk to, and I've worked at a lot of B2B companies, they have an ad relevancy score of like 3, 4. You're talking about 9 or 10. And we use pictures of our team. And why is that? Well, when someone wants to work with you, they want to, who works there? What does your team look like? Who would be working on my account? Whatever that is. So we're just overcoming their objections. We're doing it on LinkedIn, we're doing it on Instagram, we're doing it on Facebook, and we're driving people right back to our site. And all the statuses that we write as well, what are we doing with those statuses? How are we getting people to come back to our site? We just tag our company in every single one. We say, at BAMF Media, or whatever it may be, and we just tag our company page and send traffic directly there. And your company page acts just like a landing page. Like, this is what we do, this is how we do it, here's our website link. And through that, we're growing our company. And this is exactly what we're doing for ourselves, and it's not that hard to set up at all. In fact, if you have
maybe a couple years of marketing experience, you could do something like this literally within 2 to 3 hours. And I've made it easy enough. And I have a book on product hunt, and I'll go over this in just a little bit, called the Copywriting Bible. It's absolutely free. It has 100 viral templates. You can actually plug in your own story, pop it up right above a Facebook ad and say, this is my company story, and remarket your LinkedIn connections. And I want you to see the relevance score. I want you to see the click-through rate and how much money you need to spend to hit all those connections and drive traffic to your site. And you'll be blown away. And it takes no time to do that. So here are example ads. So we use ads with influencers. We use ads, testimonials, anything that can overcome objections. And for us, it's a lot about cutting the sales cycle. If you're in the B2C market and you're selling something at maybe $15 a month, $10 a month, you don't have to do all this credibility. You can actually just do half of what I did, and you'll get results. We just have to do this because we're working at a higher price point. So you don't even have to do everything I'm showing you if you're in the B2C market. It's a much, much easier. So here's an example ad that we ran. And here's some example stats. So Nick Black, I love the dude. He runs a nonprofit called Stop Soldier Suicide. He also runs an agency where he sells chatbots to nonprofits. What a very interesting niche. You know, you never know what people do. And as you can see, 10 out of 10 relevance score, 271 link clicks, cost per lead for his agency, $4. You're talking about people who want to spend a minimum of $3K a month. And who are those people clicking on that ad? Everyone he's connected with on LinkedIn, right? And who is he connecting with on LinkedIn? Everybody through Sales Navigator, because he used Linked Helper. And he said, I want to connect with people who are VP of marketing, directors of marketing at nonprofits. And I want them to have this many employees. So he's very exact with his target market. And we even did account-based marketing for him, where he's like, hey, here are all the people I want to reach out to, find their LinkedIn URLs. And we even did that. And again, cost per lead of $4. In the first month, when we were showing him how to do this, he had too many leads, and he said, let's put everything on pause at the end of this month. It's crazy, absolutely insane. And today, he's still one of our best testimonial case studies because it just shows that it works, right? And also notice this, click-through rate, 13.2%. How many people have ran an ad to a B2B audience and had a click-through rate of 13.2%? I don't think anybody's ever had that percent before. I think that's probably as high as it gets, to be honest. So a little bit of what I was talking about before. We have the Copywriting Bible. This is absolutely free. It's on Product Hunt. I'm coming out with a second version this year. And all you have to do is plug and play your stories. And we're doing this for close to 20 founders right now. We run them through these outlines. And not only that, we see many, many people copying these outlines for their Facebook group. One of the cool parts about writing content on LinkedIn is that's transferable to a Facebook group. So if you write a story about your company and you post it in your Facebook group, for the most part, it'll do just as well. LinkedIn tends to push it out more, but in terms of Facebook, you may get 100 engagements, whatever that looks like to you, that's very positive for your Facebook group. And I think one of the coolest parts about this is that I know it took me 7 years to become a great copywriter. I'm giving you the outlines, just become a great copywriter from day one, right? I did the hard work for you. You don't have to do it. You don't have to build that deep T that I was talking about. All that stuff in audience building, that's all great if you want to do it yourself, or you can just copy this. And some people have, and they're seeing incredible results. So how do you take this one step further? Because, you can be really crazy with your marketing skills and build a sales funnel like this one for $4 a day. But what if you just take it one step further? Well, this is what it looks like. We use a tool called Mailshake. It's a cold email tool similar to like Outreach, but even more simple. And what we do is after a couple weeks, when we've connected with people, is we email them, we say, hey, I want you to join my Facebook group. And why do they join your Facebook group? Well, one is after those 2 weeks of connecting with you on LinkedIn, what are they seeing? They're seeing all your stories. They're seeing all your videos on Facebook, Instagram, maybe Quora, Twitter, wherever you're marketing them. And now they're thinking, wow, I know this guy. Like, he may not know me that well, but I know so much about his life, and I believe in what he does. And they click join into the group. And it's so easy to join a Facebook group because there's no opt-in. You just join. And the beautiful part about this is that it works for all different types of people in B2B and B2C. And I'm talking about not just like founders, but IT directors, authors, whoever it may be. We're building lots of these Facebook groups for people and teaching them how to do it. And it's not that hard. Mailshake doesn't take any coding knowledge to learn. Facebook groups, how many people here can create a Facebook group, right? Everyone. And what happens once people join your Facebook group? Well, you develop something incredible. And that's an influencer presence, right? Just being the founder of a Facebook group enables you to be like, hey, I'm the leader of the IT directors. I'm the leader of these maybe 100 people in my group who, if I land one of them as a client, they may pay me $5K a month, $10K a month, whatever that looks like for you, right? And if you're an enterprise, that can mean so much. So now you have this authority of presence just by getting them in the Facebook group and you being the organizer and you being the relationship builder. And that is so invaluable to say the least, because sometimes one post, as we talked about before, can make you close to $200,000. Absolutely incredible. And how do you get people to go one step further in your funnel? Start doing giveaways in your group. You want them on your email list too, right? Just because you cold email them doesn't mean you could always shoot them an email. You got to get them to opt in at some point. They're so stuck in your sales funnel, let's get them a little further in. So ManyChat, one of my favorite tools for messenger bots, what I do is I do giveaways. I'm like, here's Copywriting Bible, here's the BAMP Bible, here's another ebook I wrote. And I post in the group, and I get people to opt in. And they opt in on Messenger, and I say, hey, on Messenger, if you want the book, please plug in your email. And then I sync it with Zapier, and Zapier syncs right into my email account. And now I have them on my email list as well as my Messenger list. So get this. After 3 weeks, you connected with me on LinkedIn. You're seeing my ads in your Facebook newsfeed, your Instagram newsfeed. You're seeing my content on LinkedIn. You're in my Facebook group. You're on my Messenger list. You're on my email list. And you know how much that cost me? Almost nothing. And that's insane, right? And all you had to do was write some great copy. And if you start with great copy and you have some pictures for ads, you can almost do this whole process today. So what I like to say is this is a little funny. So it's a little trick that we do, which sometimes I don't reveal, but I think here's a great opportunity, is we'll have somebody on our sales team reach out, and this will be maybe after a month after we connected with somebody on LinkedIn. Now they're in our Facebook group, and our sales guy will say, hey, let's hop on a call. And they think that I have no idea that my sales guy is reaching out. They're like, oh, it's just, a random coincidence that one of Josh's sales guys is reaching out. It's not true at all. We actually want them to think that. And once they see that email, they're like, I built so much rapport with him over the last month. Let's hop on that call with him. So they hop on that call, and what happens is they convert. They're a very warm lead, to say the least, right? They've seen a lot of content from me, maybe 20 pieces of content. And they're not going to ask questions like, hey, Josh, who am I working with? They're not going to ask questions like, hey, who have you worked with? Or even say, okay, I don't really know what's in your service. What type of results have you gotten? They've seen it all in their newsfeed. All they're going to say is, can you give me a little bit more detail, and what is the price point? And sometimes they say, and this happens almost half the time when we do this, they say, Josh, I feel like I already know you. And when you say that, the chances of them converting to a customer is much, much higher. And if you're in the B2B world, or maybe you're working in B2C at a higher price point, that statement is gold to you. Someone saying, I already know you. Because why do people buy from you? Based off your know, like, and trust factor. And if they trust you, if they like you, if they know you, they'll buy from you. So what I like to say is trust in the process. Now, this process is here. You can just copy it. Everything is just given to you. And some people are copying it today and seeing phenomenal results. And this won't be around forever. LinkedIn tomorrow may be like, screw you, Josh. I'm not going to let people download personal emails from their connection list anymore. And maybe they do that in 3 months. But someone here today says, I'm going to do this today. And they use it, and they grow their business over the next 3 months. So this stuff does not exist forever, right? And the more I tell people about this, the less likely it will exist forever. So keep that in mind too. So the idea here is to take action, trust in it. And if you execute it on today or maybe tomorrow. It's not going to cost you anything to do it. And what is it worth to you? Maybe it's worth building a company. So thank you guys. I really appreciate you guys being here. Please go do this. I love you. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Again, questions. Raise your hands. It's the right time to ask questions if you have any. Okay?
Hi, I have a quick question. Why do you lead people to Facebook group and not to Facebook page?
Not to where?
To Facebook page.
Well, I think one is your Facebook page doesn't really establish an authority. Like imagine if you got a cold email and it said, like my Facebook page. I would probably just go delete. It doesn't matter how well I know that person and like that person, I would still probably delete it, to be honest. A Facebook group is actually a sign of value. It's like, hey, we have a community. We have people you can meet. A Facebook page doesn't signify value right off the bat, right? So, yeah, I would say a Facebook page is, compared to the value of a Facebook group, is almost nil as well, from what I've seen. Even when you post on a Facebook page, the chances are that's not going to get as much interaction as a really well-groomed Facebook group.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we had one more. Yeah.
I have a question. What are your top 3 advices how to promote your Quora profile?
So I honestly think Quora is a pretty poor source of traction if you're trying to grow any business. I do think it's a great writing platform if you want to experiment with your writing and get better at copywriting. So if that's your goal, then definitely use Quora. I mean, I've written so much on Quora, to say the least. And in terms of leads that we've gotten from Quora compared to LinkedIn and Facebook, it's basically nil. In terms of copywriting skills I've gained from Quora, has been great. And I've had tons of content that I can repost. And the best part about it is that it gives you a question, right? It's like, here's a prompt, answer this, and enables you not to think of that on your own. So it gives you the starting point. And then for the most part, you can usually copy those over into your Facebook group and LinkedIn profile.
Thank you for your presentation. You have done a lot of content, and that's why you can show this content and involve people to your group. But what you fear, in case if we don't have this amount of content, how you can motivate people from LinkedIn list to take a part in your group or maybe buy your product?
So I honestly don't even need you to learn how to write content. I put the outlines there, right, in the Copywriting Bible. There's 100 of them. And if you just go through those, and after the 100, there's 20 engagement statuses that you can use for LinkedIn and Facebook that every group uses. You have 120 posts to get you going. So just copy those. Like, I want to make it as easy as possible, right? So don't even think you have to do any of it on your own, right? And you could just rock and roll, plug and play your story, and post it online. And then people come to me when they post it online. Like one of the people we were working with is Aaron Orendoff. He's the editor over at Shopify Plus. And he went through our book and he posted 3 statuses following the copywriting formula. And he was like, oh my God, I can't believe more people are not doing this. This is absolutely insane. Like all this posts went viral back to back. And I said, yeah, man, you know, it's interesting. Like I talk about this stuff all the time, but very few people do it. And the people who do, like, see it right away. But most of the people who take action are already writers. They're the people who don't even need it, right? He just wanted to see if it worked. And then he was like, okay, well, I'm going to continue writing my own content.
Okay. Any more questions? Yeah. Oh, 1, 2, 3. Okay. We have plenty of time. Yeah. So.
Josh, thanks for a great speech and a story. I wanted to ask you one question. The biggest issue here in Ukraine is we suck in English, most of us. So you are a copywriter by default because it's your native tongue, right? So what do you suggest? Like if you outsource it to the guy in the Philippines, you kind of lose all the personality, because most of your stories are inspirational primarily because of your personality, right? So what would you suggest? Imagine that you speak German. You don't know English. What would you do in this case? Thanks.
Great question. So we work with somebody right now who's from Brazil, and he posts both in Spanish and English. Now, there's something really interesting about this, which I find absolutely fascinating. So when he posts a LinkedIn status, he does it in English, and then a couple hours later, he does it in Spanish. And what LinkedIn does is they take the Spanish status and they only push it out to people who marked on their LinkedIn profile that they're native Spanish speakers. So what we see is both those statuses go viral at the same time. So he's actually getting double the benefit. So if you're looking to reach two audiences, so let's say the German market and the US market, you can have double the benefit. And what I would recommend is first going through the Copywriting Bible and then just write it in German. And then go through and go to whoever it is that you need to translate it for you, and then have them put it in English. Because that's what we're doing for people right now, and it's working really, really well. So you don't need to write it in English at first. You could just write it in your native language, and then get someone to transfer it into English.
Okay, one more.
Thank you, Josh. I have a question. Is there some way how to retarget people from from Quora or Reddit or some other crowd marketing?
What do you mean by just retarget them?
For example, if you are using LinkedIn and Phantom Buster, you can find these people and you can get their contacts. Is there some similar way to do that on Quora?
Oh man, I've tried way too many hours trying to do that with Quora, Twitter. There actually was a way to do it with Facebook. It's literally the day after I released it, the second Banff Bible, it was removed. So you could actually hook up your Yahoo account, if you just created a Yahoo account with your Facebook account, and it would export all your connections' email addresses. But you can't do that anymore. So LinkedIn is the only platform today, and that's why it's incredible to use it. And I think that's what people don't get, is the value of that piece of email is absolutely insane. There's no other social platform right now that gives you personal emails.
Okay.
Could you tell me, please, for example, if we need to promote services of the company, it is better to use company's page or maybe some personal page? On LinkedIn, on Facebook, it doesn't matter.
I think it really depends on your company, first off. Second off, because people don't really like that answer, I'll just dive a little bit more into it, is that one is, if you're in the B2B world, it's much better to do it through your personal profile because sales cycle is really long. It's a lot of human interaction. So if you're selling anything over $3K a month, for the most part, it's better to do it through your personal profile at first. I think you should always gear it towards the end of the day to doing it on your company profile. On LinkedIn, it can take a lot of time, to say the least. You have to tag a lot of your personal statuses with your LinkedIn company page name, so it drives traffic there and drives followers there. But what you don't want to do is end up in a situation where your whole company is built on your personal brand, so you actually can't go and do more things. So you're like, oh man, I just built this great company, but I can't start this other company and do this other cool thing because everything in this company depends on me. So gear at first, if you're in B2B or maybe in B2C at a higher selling point, from your personal profile, and then move it towards your company as soon as you can.
Josh? Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, thanks for your talk. It was motivative, and there's a lot of details for point to actions. So I have two simple questions. One is, for example, we have a great story, and you can post in your Facebook group, and also you can post in your feed, personal feed, right? Because you have a lot of subscribers. So what do? Do you post it everywhere and just repost, or what's your strategy here?
Yeah, in part because people aren't super active on one platform, super active on another. Some people are just active on Facebook, and maybe some people don't even dive into Facebook groups, right? So I recommend reposting the content across a couple of different platforms. And also, you have to keep in mind that people don't care about seeing the same content twice if it's great content. The reason for that is, especially in the B2B world, B2C world, as long as it's not e-commerce, for the most part, the content that you're competing with is absolute garbage, right? So they don't care about seeing your same great story twice, because in between those great stories is, hey, here's my event, here's my blog post. So you have to click through and there's immediate pop-up. So they may actually see your story up to 9 times before they even click on someone who shared an article. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Another question. What kind of story do you post? I mean, do you have some kind of backlog of stories, or just your post, write some story what you just really in your mind and what really capture you?
Yeah, it definitely takes a lot of skill to be resourceful. I like to say anything you learn, you could turn into a story. What we tell people is if you have meetings during the day, then you have stories, right? As long as you're learning something from your meetings. I hope everybody learns at least one thing from their meetings. And also just look for that, right? If you have to appreciate your life a little bit more in order to find those stories. If you don't appreciate what's happening around you, then you'll never be able to turn into a story. And that's just something you gotta, learn on your own and be a little bit more self-aware to do.
And maybe last, still, it's okay. Yeah, so you mentioned that it's important to have like laser focus and just Chrome extension that you just see something, to post. So you don't see any of your friends' stories. But problem is when you put, and it's definitely you have it, when you put really great story, then people start to react and comment and ask you something. What do you do with it? Do you still continue to interact with them, but it's probably distracting from your business, or you just ignore them? Ignore them. Thanks.
It really depends on how big your following is. I don't interact with people that much in the comments, to be honest. I would recommend to pay a VA to do that. A lot of people may not like that answer, and they may be like, oh, it's impersonal. At the end of the day, do what works. If it helps grow your company, it helps grow your company. We have a couple people in Nigeria who are absolute beasts at interacting with people in comments for our clients. And they go log into all our clients' profiles, engage with each other. So it's like this whole engagement pod. I don't know what they're doing, but it works great. So I would recommend, having a VA or someone along the lines to do that for you. And all they have to say is hey, thank you so much for your comment. That means a lot. I would say even do that for Messenger sometimes. So I sent out a Messenger blast earlier this week to 20,000 subscribers, and I had I think 6,000 people respond. I went through around 2,000 on my own, which was probably a mistake, and then I had a VA take care of the rest.
Okay, I think this is going to be the last question, and then we'll have something special. Okay, go ahead.
That's a lot of pressure. You know what is banner blindness, right? So I connected to a bunch of people who are marketers and on LinkedIn, and now they're all repeating your advice. Posting the stories, being vulnerable, and how it can be the next banner blindness. How do you stand out from in this case?
Yeah, great question. I would say that any tactic similar to what David said earlier is that it gets saturated at some point. And you have to take advantage of it before it doesn't get saturated. I would also say that you should also ask yourself, if their profiles are growing really quickly, and if the content that's written is, if you think it's really remarkable, they also may be a client of ours. So keep that in mind, because we do it for 20 people, and we're publishing 60 statuses a week. It's a lot of status, and you're talking about 60 statuses a week. That means we're doing close to 240 a month, right, of statuses that we're trying to get to go viral, of personal stories. So for the most part, I don't see a lot of other people doing it besides our clients. I would hope that more people would do it. I think, Aaron Orendoff is a great example, the editor over at Shopify Plus. He posts a lot on LinkedIn. Manu Goswami is another person on LinkedIn who posts a lot. And the last person who comes to my mind is the founder of Track Maven. I'm trying to remember his name off the top of my head, but he posts a lot as well. But for the most part, that's about it. There's not a lot of people in the marketing space doing it consistently.
Okay. That's it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.